Salutations! Today, we will be talking about three very important economic concepts, namely PES, price elasticity of supply, XED, cross elasticity of demand, and third, YED, which is the income elasticity of demand. While these concepts are all related to elasticity, it may be quite complicated for students to tell them apart and learn about their applications in daily life. And so, we hope this video will be able to help you.
So firstly, we're going to talk about PES. So what is PES? PES stands for the price elasticity of supply. Now let's look at the definition of the PES. PES stands for the measurement of responsiveness of the quantity of a good supplied to the changes in price. So let's look at the equation of the PES. The equation of PES is the percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in price. Now with the equation, it comes to numbers. Now what do these numbers stand for? So when the PES is bigger than 1, it means it's elastic. And if the PES is greater than 0, it's smaller than 1, it means it's inelastic. If the PES is 0, it means it's perfectly inelastic. And if the PES equals to infinity, it means it's perfectly elastic. If the PES is 1, it's unit elastic. Now let's look at these graphically. Firstly, an elastic case. You see, when the price changes from P1 to P2, it increases from 10% in this case. And the quantity changes, increases up to 20%. So when we plug in the numbers, we get 20 over 10, which means it's 2. So what does that mean? It means the PES is bigger than 1. So it's an elastic case. Now, let's look at this. So when the price increases by 10% from P1 to P2, but the quantity only increases by 3% here. So we plug in the numbers again, we get 0.3 here. So you see, it's greater than 0, but it's smaller than 1. So in this case, it's inelastic. Now, these cases, you can see this horizontal supply line. The supply curve. So you see, when the price is the same, the quantity can differ. So it means it's infinity. But vice versa, if the PES is 0, when the price changes, the quantity doesn't change. So it means it's perfectly inelastic. Now let's look at the case of a unit elastic. So when the price changes, increases by 10%, the quantity also changes by 10%. We yet again plug in the numbers. The PES is equal to 0, so it's unit elastic. So after this, we must look at the determinants of PES. Now, under PES, there are two determinants. There's the length of time and the spare capacity of firms. Now let's look at the spare capacity of firms first. When the firm has a higher spare capacity, it can adjust to the price change with greater quantity. So it means it can be elastic. So the PES will be bigger than 1. Now, contrary to that, when the firm has lower capacity, when the price changes, the firm cannot adjust to the price, so it will be relatively inelastic. Now, let's look at the length of time and how it will determine the PES. So, per se, there's an immediate time period. So, when there's an immediate time period, it means the firm cannot adjust to the price as they cannot output more. So, the PES, it will be almost perfectly inelastic. So, it will be almost equal to 0 or very close to 0. In the short run, it realistically can adjust to the price, but it couldn't output that much. So it would be relatively inelastic with this equation. Now, in the long run, when the price changes, the firms have the freedom and will be able to adjust to the price. So it will be elastic. So PES will be bigger than 1. So these are the determinants of
Now that we've looked at what price elasticity of supply is, let's look at the cross elasticity of demand, which is XED. While the price elasticity of demand refers to the responsiveness in change in quantity demanded of a given good, which is good A, when the price changes, XED refers to responsiveness of the quantity demanded of good A when the price of good B changes. So it is very important to know the difference. When PED only refers to involves one product, XED refers to the relationship between two products. Now let's talk about the equation for XED. So the equation of XED is quite simple. It is as follows: the percentage change of quantity demanded of good A over the percentage change in the price of good B. Now from the value we can tell two things. First, it is the sign, and second, it is the magnitude. Now first I'll talk about the sign. When the sign of the XED is positive, it means the two goods are substitutes. Substitute goods basically mean that the two goods can be used interchangeably, such as 7-Up and Sprite. When the sign is negative, it means they're complementary. Complements, sorry. So basically, complements are two goods that need to be used together in order to achieve a desired purpose, such as CD and CD players. When the sign is 0, it means that the two goods have no relation at all. Now let's look at the magnitude. For example, if the magnitude of the XED is 2 compared to 1, as 2 is further away from 0, it basically means that it is the stronger substitute than 1 because it is further away from 0. Now applying the same logic, when we look at complementary goods, the more it is away from 0, the more related it is, right? So an XED of 2 would indicate that they are stronger complementaries than goods with an XED of -1. Now there are strong substitutes and weak substitutes, right? So now let's look at some examples graphically. So I'll talk about strong substitutes first. I'll use the example of Sprite and 7-Up. When the price of Sprite increases from P1 to P2 by 50%, the quantity demanded of 7-Up increases from QD1 to QD2 by 70%. Now we can look at the XED. It's 70% over 50%, which is 1.4, which is relatively large, right? So that means it is a strong substitute. And in converse, let's look at weak substitutes now. When the price of coffee, I'll use the example of coffee and tea. Now, when the price of coffee increases by 50%, the quantity demanded of tea only increases by 30%, because not all people who like coffee might like tea. So now the XED is as follows. It's 30% over 50%, which is 0.6, which you can see is a lot smaller than that of the strong substitutes. Now I'll talk about strong complements. In this example, I'll use CDs and CD players. When the price of CDs increases by 50% from P1 to P2, the quantity demanded of CD players only decreases from QD1 to QD2 by 70%. As we can see, the XED of each two products are negative 7% over 50%, which means it's negative 1.4, which is a relatively large number, right? So in terms of weak complements, I'll use the example of coffee and green. When the price of coffee increases by 50%, the quantity demanded of green decreases by 30%. So the XED is negative 30% over 50%, which means it's negative 0.6. Now, as compared to this one, we can see that the strong complement's value is further away from 0 by a lot, as opposed to the weak complements. Therefore, this is how we can tell apart strong complements, weak complements, strong substitutes, and weak substitutes.
I'll talk about the YED, which is basically the income elasticity of demand. Some of you might be asking, why is it a Y instead of an I? It's because the I is used in investment, and therefore, in order to minimize confusion, Y is used. And the YED is a measure of responsiveness in demand to changes in income, and it shows the direction of demand change and the magnitude of the shift, which means by how much. Now I'll move on to the formula of YED. It's basically a percentage change, the triangle delta means change, and the percentage change in demand for good X over the percentage change in income, which is Y. Now I'll use an example of meals, which is a really popular food in the UK, and therefore I'll use pounds. Income demand. Okay, let's substitute the numbers inside this formula. When we substitute this, we're going to get and the answer you're going to get is 0.625 if my calculations are correct. And how do you interpret this answer? First of all, you look at the sign and the numerical value. The sign you look at plus or minus. A plus represents a normal good, and while the negative represents an inferior good. And a normal good means when the income increases, demand is going to increase, while for an inferior good and the income is going to increase, the demand is going to decrease. Now let's talk about the numerical value. When YED is larger than 1, it means it's income inelastic, which means a change in income will not lead to a drastic change in demand. While for YED less than 1, it is income elastic, which means a change in income will lead to a really drastic change in demand. Now, I'll talk about the determinants of the YED. First of all, is it a necessity or is it a luxury? For example, food like apples, oranges, the YED is going to be less than 1. No matter how much their income is, since it's a necessity, if people don't buy the food, they're going to starve to death and they're going to buy it anyway. If income increases, they're going to buy more food. Now I'll talk about luxuries. For example, private education, jewelry, they are all income elastic. When the income goes up, the proportion of income spent on luxuries at a higher rate than income. And now I'll talk about the income level of consumers. Since wealth is relative, it really, necessity or luxuries are really subjective. And it really depends on who is the target of the research. And finally, I will talk about the applications of the YED. Usually, the YED is used to see the rate of expansion of industries, but for firms, it's usually for firms, and it reveals the products that are likely going to have the most rapidly expanding markets. most rapidly expanding market means more potential. The higher the YED of a good means the greater the expansion of the market likely to be in the future. And lower the YED means a smaller expansion. And that's the end of the video. Thank you.